Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, cool. We're going to go ahead and get started. We'd like to start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, so everyone can stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. The next thing we'd like to have is any former candidates or current candidates or elected officials or committee people, if you could stand and say your name, and I know who you are, so if you don't know who you should stand. Dennis, Barb, where did John Kessler go? Just say your name, what you ran for.
Oh, I'm Dennis McDonald. I ran for state rep in District 114.
Mark, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Blaine. I'm committeeman for Arnold Township.
Mark Marco, I ran for state rep in 118.
Kevin Hurley, committeeman, Valley Township.
Mark Williams, I ran for the Jefferson County Health Board.
My name is Andrew Young. I ran for County Clerk of St. Francis County.
Awesome. And John, will you introduce yourself?
My name is John Kessler. I'm the Democratic Chair for the 8th Congressional District.
Perfect. Okay, thank you all. Oh, Renita did be on here. Go ahead.
Oh, Renita, I ran for the 147.
Renita will get a very formal introduction in a second as well. So I wanted to start by first introducing myself. Many of you know me via phone calls and emails and text messages and all the things I bothered you with last time. So last time I had the pleasure of being Kathy's field director for the last 3 months of the campaign. And this time I have the honor of being her campaign manager. So you haven't gotten rid of me yet. So you're still going to see me for the next year and a half. So I just wanted to start by introducing myself, sort of setting the stage for the event, and then let the people take over that you're actually here to hear from, not me. So when Kathy first approached me about running again, I was not surprised, and I think the rest of us could probably agree with that. We all witnessed the courage, determination, and maybe a bit of insanity that motivated Kathy last time. And so it wasn't shocking to me that she decided that there was more work to do in the district. Running for office is messy. It's expensive, requires distinct vulnerability, it's exhausting, and as Kathy witnessed, it requires many miles, 65,000 to be exact.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of gas, and many physical therapy sessions afterwards. Messed up her back, so. But Kathy is correct. There is still work to be done in the district, and we all know this. It's why we're here. Because we're tired of the same old policies that do nothing for the people who live here, but instead line in the pockets of the current representatives. We're tired of not having a voice in the matter. So my background is in community and union organizing, which is how you all got to know me in the first round. And I know that the only way we change things is by organizing. This campaign is about more than just winning, though we would all love to see Jason Smith out of office, right? Yeah. This is about bringing people together to advocate for changes that we know we deserve. It's about saying enough is enough. We deserve better. We deserve healthcare. We deserve jobs. We deserve internet. We deserve more. So I know you all did not come here to hear me speak, but I wanted to introduce myself so that when I continue to call you and email you and text you and knock on your doors, you know who I am. So before we move on to our first speaker, we'd like to go ahead and show you our launch video. I think a lot of you saw this on social media and your emails, but we think it's worth seeing again. So, and our videographer is actually here, Ryan. He's in the back. So, without further ado.
The system isn't working. Parents are working multiple jobs to make ends meet, but they're still struggling. Families have to choose between putting food on the table or paying for their prescriptions. Many in our district have watched hospitals in their communities close, making healthcare nearly impossible to get. Our roads and bridges are failing. We can't get basic cell service in our homes or internet for our businesses. Something has to change. My name is Kathy Ellis, and I grew up in Jefferson County. My mom, a public school teacher, and my dad, a school administrator, worked hard to provide for our family. I still live here, and I know what it's like to not be represented. I know what it's like to work hard to make ends meet and to still feel like it's not enough. And I know what it's like to watch my parents suffer because our social security system is at risk. For too long, career politicians have put their donors over their constituents. They represent big pharma, big healthcare, and big energy. They don't represent us. They don't show up, and they don't listen. We deserve better. We deserve a representative who shows up day in and day out to work on behalf of the people back home, not their corporate donors and lobbyists. I'm a clinical social worker, an addictions counselor, a mentor. Running for Congress not just once but twice wasn't my plan, but after years of the same inadequate representation and same issues facing our community, I decided to take a stand. Because the people of this district, our parents, our neighbors, our children, deserve more. We deserve health care that is quality, affordable, and accessible. We deserve jobs that pay us a living wage and union representation. We deserve a government free of corruption and greed and equal opportunities for those who live and work in rural areas. We deserve change. Together we can make this change. I ran for Congress in 2018 because I wanted more for our district. I'm running again because our work isn't done. I'm Kathy Ellis, and I'm running for Congress in Missouri's 8th Congressional District. Together, we can build a stronger Missouri, a Missouri that works for us all. Join us. Let's fight for the change that we deserve.
We made that whole video just so their new puppy could be in it. I think we have to pay the puppy at this point. So our first speaker is Renita Green. Many of you know Renita. So Renita first ran for the State House of Representatives in 2018 in District 147, which is in Cape Girardeau. Renita's team and our team worked closely together. Many of you probably saw that. We shared an office in Cape right across from the Dollar General, which was very handy for office supplies. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Renita.
Hi, y'all. Happy, what's today? Thursday? Is it Thursday already? Good golly, where'd the week go? Are you ready to elect Kathy Ellis for the 8th Congressional District? I am ready for Kathy. I'm ready for the change that Kathy brings, the fresh wind and the fresh breath that we can breathe in her presence. It is so important that we dig in and we decide that we are just going to do the hard work. The work is hard. Look at somebody and say hard. Hard. Your knuckles will get sore knocking on the doors. Yeah, even sore knocking on some heads. Your feet will get tired. Your knees will ache. Your fingers will cramp from all the postcard writing. Your mouth will be dry from licking all the envelopes and stamps. And I promise you, it is all worth it. Whatever vacation you had planned to go on, unless you have that same amount of money to give to the campaign, I recommend you shifting your funds because some of us don't have a whole lot to give. But if we redirect some of what we are already spending in other spaces and see this as an investment in our future and the future of our children and our grandchildren, we will see that whatever we were going to do that week away can be perfectly fine when we take that vacation and spend that week campaigning for Kathy Ellis. So let's figure that out in our own heart, because if we don't do this, we're not going to win. A campaign is only as strong as the people who commit themselves to the work. If you believe in this, if you are tired, if your soul is weary, ain't nobody gonna know it if you just hovering in your house, isolating yourself from all the mess. You have to be willing and ready to get out there and do the work. Now, getting out there and doing the work is only part of the work. The other part of the work is being the ambassador, the recruiter for other people who are also going to get out there and do the work. It's great for you to do the work, but it's going to be so much more impactful when you bring a friend along with you. So start making your list of friends and acquaintances, because some of your friends are going to drop off that list before camping season is over. Make a list of people that you can tolerate for a couple hours a day and ask them to be your door-knocking buddy, your canvassing buddy, that you will go out together. And then your canvassing buddy, ideally, will get a canvassing buddy and start their own team, and that's the way this works. Now, this district needs a lot of what Kathy, this district just needs a lot. And while we're out there, there are 4 things that I want to remind us to be about as we are presenting ourselves and representing each other. The first thing I want to say is be kind. The politics of today's era is they're not kind. And kindness makes a difference. Kindness is what will set you apart from everyone else. When all that trash talk is flying around, we don't have to catch the trash that is thrown. We are not the trash collectors. We don't have to get into the business of talking trash either. We cannot pollute our spirit with all that garbage. Be kind. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself space to breathe. Because some folks you'll talk to gonna make you want to stop breathing or make somebody else stop breathing. For every hour that you spend talking to someone about the changes that are needed, you need to take that same time to refresh your own spirit. Be kind. And the second thing that I'd like to encourage us to do is to be clear. Be clear about who you are and why you are doing what you're doing. First, be clear in your own heart and mind. If your only mission is to get rid of somebody, your mission is not likely going to be successful. We have to be about what we are for more so than what we're against. Nobody wants to hear what we're against, honestly. We can talk about what we're against when we're together, but when we go out there, we have to talk about what we are for, who we are for. That other person's name really doesn't need to cross our lips. The only name that needs to cross our lips is Kathy Ellis. Say it with me. Kathy Ellis. That's the only name that needs to cross our lips. Amen. Hey, that's what you get when you get a preacher at the microphone. And third, and also with be clear, know that people are struggling. They're struggling being Republican. They're struggling being Democrats. They're struggling being independent. We don't need to add to their confusion. We don't want to be one in a cacophony of voices. We want to be the clear sound voice in the midst of a bunch of mess. Be clear. Now, thirdly, be compassionate. Compassion is feeling some kind of way and then having a desire to alleviate that suffering. That's what compassion is. And your neighbors, and these are your neighbors that you're going to be talking to, your neighbors are hurting, your neighbors are struggling, and even if they don't know how the policies and the ways of this system have hurt them, they are hurting. And the worst kind of pain to be in is to not even know that there's healing. So help your neighbors heal by being compassionate. Listen to their stories, empathize with their position. You don't have to be right and you don't have to be on top. You don't have to be the loudest voice on the porch. You don't have to be the most assertive voice in the room. All you have to do is be the presence of compassion, because that in itself will make a difference. And then finally, be consistent. This work is tiring. Doing it one time isn't going to do the trick. We've got to get out there, knock on those doors, and when you've knocked on every door in your neighborhood, go back and knock again. And then when you've knocked on all those doors, spread out a little bit, but go back and knock again. Show up in the spaces where your neighbors show up. Show up at the community picnic. Show up at Tunes at Twilight. Show up, show up, show up. Show up in your shirt. Show up in your buttons. Show up in your caps. Show up. And you don't even have to say a word. Now, finally, know that however it is we present ourselves in public, that's the message they're going to believe about our candidate. So however we are acting out in front of everyone, that's what folks are going to believe Kathy Ellis is about. We are a living, walking, breathing advertisement for our candidate. So represent well. Represent very well. And when you think that you've just got it down, check yourself and do better. We can get this. We can win. And when I knocked on doors and talked to people during the last election cycle, the thing that seemed to be the most powerful and I think the best takeaway and the greatest win that we achieved is encouraging people to believe that we can win. We can win. People don't believe that we can win. We can win. Out on the streets, we used to have a little chant that said, I believe that we can win. And tell yourself that over and over and over and over again. We can win. And not only can we win, we have to win. We have to win. There's a lot riding on this. We can and we have to. And we will when we're being kind and we're being compassionate and we're being clear and being consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, Renita. Our next speaker might be a new face to some of you. James Page is a resident of St. Louis City and has a strong background in community organizing. As a leader within St. Louis City and a former organizer through OFA, I'll let him tell the rest. James knows what it's like to work for change. He also happens to be my neighbor, which we just found out recently, and one of the first people that Kathy met when she was considering running the first go-around. So, Mr. Page, it's all you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh my goodness, that won't do. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. I have a little exercise for you. This is going to be a little call and response exercise. And when I give you the cue, you're going to say, hello, James. Okay, got that?
Yes.
Let's practice it one time.
Hello, James.
Okay, now, you got it. Okay, my name is James Page, and I am an organizer.
Hello, James.
Good job. Well, let's see now. How do I know that I'm an organizer? Well, let's see. I built a team that organized all of North St. Louis City and all of North St. Louis County leading up to the 2012 general election. And I had a lot of help from a couple of people I see right in the audience. My team and I, 46,500 new voters in the state of Missouri in 2012.
Hello, James.
You got it. Also in 2012, my team and I helped to elect, through our organizing efforts, every single statewide candidate, Democratic candidate in the state of Missouri, except for one. And you may remember who that one was. Susan Monteith, Lieutenant Governor. History lesson. My team and I also organized and executed 26, count them, 26 Affordable Care Act informational events in metropolitan St. Louis in 2013 and 2014. My team and other organizers registered 53,000 new voters in the St. Louis region in 2018. You notice I'm bringing this more and more to current times. Now, I know some of you would say, it's impossible. I'm going to share with our candidate the documentation from the St. Louis American. So, also, you notice how many times I've used the word team?
Yes.
What do you think that is? Anybody? Absolutely. It's going to take a team to help Kathy Ellis get elected. So let's come to even more recent times. It was through organizing. And over cookies, I'll give you the details if you want. It was through organizing that I met Kathy Ellis. We met for lunch at Panera Bread in Sunset Hills, Missouri on February the 13th, 2017. Kathy had just returned from the first ever Women's March in Washington, D.C., and as was a rallying cry with another candidate whom you may know, she was fired up. So, after we sat down and we talked, I learned the progressive issues and policies that motivate her. I heartily recommended that she run for Congress. Lo and behold, she did. Now, I'm not going to focus on the results of that race because that's not why we're here. Let's come a little closer to the current time. Kathy and I met again for lunch at the same location Monday, June 3rd, 2019 to be specific. And I'm here to tell you that she is fired up to run again in 2020. So, you might ask, well, why does this James Page guy believe so strongly in grassroots organizing? Why, you ask? Because you and I as citizens, as organizers, have the power to change the course of this country. Because you and I as citizens, again, organizers, as teammates, oh my goodness, there's that word again, in our homes, among our families and our friends, in our communities, on the doors, on the phones, phone banking. Ever heard of that term? Yes. I knew you had. I knew there were some other organizers in the room. You have the power to change the course of Missouri's 8th district. Are you with me on that?
Yes.
Thank you. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my friend, my colleague, my comrade in democratic principles, and the next member of the United States House of Representatives from Missouri's 8th district. Round of applause for Kathy Ellis.
restaurant in Panera and Sunset Hills. He was meeting with a couple, and they were talking about organizing and voter registration, and I immediately knew they were not Republicans. And so I hardly ever go over there for lunch. I was on a break from work, and I walked over there. It was a lovely day, and I was just sitting there, and I was listening to him, and I went over and introduced myself. But what I really heard from James was the voice of God speaking, because I thought, oh my God, it's James Earl Jones. I love that voice, and I love that voice today. So, well, I'm gonna start in a little bit of an interesting way with this speech. I want to read it. Normally, I kind of just shoot from the hip, but it's too important to do that. In January of this year, the St. Louis Blues were in last place. They just kept losing. At some point, they were given good, orderly direction and began to play as a team. Soon they started to win. They won and they lost over and over, and then started stacking up consistent wins. With each win, they became stronger as a team. When they lost, they became more determined. They still made glaring mistakes, but kept on going. Despite injuries and defeats, their goal became more consistent: to bring home the Stanley Cup to St. Louis. Well, now we know how all this turned out. And I can tell you right now, I'm not anywhere near to being a sports fan. I played softball pretty well when I was in high school, but I continue to believe that everything in sports is revealed by watching the last 2 minutes of any game. So you actually save a lot of time by not watching the game. But I'm an observer of how a process can lead to a major change. I've seen it daily when I work with clients. In other words, look at the ingredients to any success. It usually starts with being at ground zero. After admitting that you really need help, you start finding the good, orderly direction that challenges the old way of doing things. You begin to bring people in who encourage and support you. Even when you are tired or have driven 65,000 miles, you just keep going. You listen, you learn, you reach out for help over and over. Your journey becomes the important thing. Your goal is still there, but a day at a time. Stay on the path. You admit when you screw up and don't know something, and then wake up the next morning and you try again. I believe that anything that is important, anything that is worth the difficult journey, anything that has meaning is worth the pain and the joy of the work. Running for office is like that. I learned so much in the defeat of the last campaign in 2018 that I can use today. So to everyone here today, I thank you so much for all you did in that campaign and for your continuing support. It really means a lot, and I could not have done any of it without you. And today, as I announce my candidacy for the Missouri 8th Congressional District seat in the House of Representatives, I am already in that process. We made strides in terms of organizing the 8th in 2018. Today, with the help of campaign professionals and volunteers, we are building a team. We are seeking assistance when needed. We continue to make mistakes, and we continue to learn from them. We realize that the journey is often more important than the goal, and we make progress and we grow. We change. We continue to do the next right thing. We move forward, and we will see what happens in 2020. The Missouri 8th District is like many of our rural areas in America. Some small cities seem to be doing well. You see the big box stores and the fast food on the interstates. But if you go 5 miles in any direction, you see something different. You begin to see the abandoned homes, some burned to the ground from meth production. You hear stories of loved ones who have died as a result of the opioid epidemic. You begin to notice the closed hospitals and hear of the rampant mother and infant mortality in some areas, and the food insecurity in others. Folks in small towns know what is going on and don't know what to do. Some small farms try to keep going even as their debts climb as a result of the newly imposed tariffs. Some farmers give up and commit suicide. In many areas of our district, our public schools are crumbling and inadequately funded, and the teachers need better compensation for the extremely challenging job they do. There's very little to keep the young people in their hometowns. Finding a good job is harder and harder, and we all know how difficult it is to go to a college, a university, or a technical school in the midst of rising tuition that may be carried as a debt until retirement. So let's talk about health care. Healthcare is the single most significant issue that I continue to encounter in the 8th. It is the duty of a civilized society to provide for the common good of its people. We have failed miserably in this challenge. Our federal and state representatives, particularly our current 8th District rep, don't seem to understand that we must have adequate, accessible, and affordable health care in order to care for our citizens and grow our economy. We must have professionals as well as treatment for our growing opioid epidemic. We demand that women's reproductive rights be protected. I will support any health care plan that will move us toward universal health coverage. We need an infrastructure plan that provides good union jobs and training that will prepare us for the future and address the needs of our rural areas. We must address the needs of families traumatized by domestic violence and provide the necessary services to keep them from returning to that violence. We need sensible gun laws that will protect our communities from gun violence, and we need criminal justice reform. I support any plans that will address the protection of our environment and the reality of climate change. Voting rights are an essential value of any society. We must protect these rights to include new ideas about how voting can be accomplished that provides easier access to the process. We must dismantle Citizens United. We need civics classes taught in every public school. We need Congress to create a common sense, bipartisan immigration plan, providing security as well as a path to citizenship. We must protect the rights of all our citizens to ensure that we all get equal treatment under the law. And toward that end, we must celebrate our diversity, knowing that all varieties of our humanity make a stronger nation. In short, we must feed the hungry, welcome the stranger, and advocate for the oppressed. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, "May you live in interesting times." Well, we are certainly living in interesting times. I'm also reminded that there's a Chinese character for crisis that means both danger and opportunity. We must own that the system as we know it today is broken. We are facing a dismantling of our rule of law and governmental structure unsurpassed in history. Our Constitution is being ignored on a daily basis. Our norms and our values are being trampled on. We must have a return to those values of decency and respect for all those who live in this country. It is our job as centrist Democrats, moderate Democrats, liberal Democrats, or progressive Democrats to remind people of who we are. We have hidden in the shadows, and it's time to come out. We demand a president that serves the needs of the nation. We demand a Congress that works across the aisle, but also stands up for what is right and what is good. And we demand that civility and balance be returned to the political process. We demand that our Constitution and Bill of Rights be protected with every citizen having equal rights. We want to conquer the divide that currently plagues our country. And we want the world to know that we will not tolerate white supremacy, racism, homophobia, or fascism in any form. We want common decency in all our actions. We care for humanity, and we are not afraid to show it. We demand that the income inequality expanding daily will be corrected, and that we each give back to the common good equivalent to our standing in life. We need to know that we are not alone. We need to know that we stand together. We will vote, we will volunteer, we will knock on doors. We will pray, we will run for office, and we will continue to move the needle to balance in the 8th District and throughout the country. We will seize this moment of crisis and make it an opportunity. This is a marathon and not a sprint. We know that. We know that in this state. We need our National Democratic Party to put money, time, and talent into our rural areas to remind the citizens of what our values are and that things can change. We ask all presidential candidates to come to Missouri to the 8th district and see what's going on. The abuse and neglect by Republican legislators has got to stop. We need someone in Congress to show up, work hard, learn from mistakes, and work to fix what is broken. I want to be that person, and for that to happen, I need your support. What can you do? You can help us by spreading the word, knocking on doors, writing letters to the editor, writing and calling your legislators, making phone calls, donating time, money, and talent to our campaign. You can fill out the little cards that you got. It's a way to stay in touch. In closing, many people have spoken to me about how alone they feel and how futile it is to participate in politics. I leave you with a quote from Bobby Kennedy. Let no one be discouraged by the belief there is nothing one person can do against the enormous array of the world's ills, misery, ignorance, and violence. Few will have the greatness to bend history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and the total of all those acts will be written in the history of a generation. Let's do this. Okay, this is like, she's just super powerful. She put this whole thing together. She continues to be fabulous. I'm looking forward to working with her the next year and a half and hopefully beyond in Washington, D.C.
We're gonna wing it because I can't find it. So, thank you all so much for coming. Politics is messy. Campaigning is exhausting. And some days you just can't get a hold of anyone, or you just keep calling the same voicemails over and over again. So thank you all for coming. You all are the people that make this worth it, and the reason that any of us do any of the crazy things that we do. So thank you all again. If you did not get a little card, this is my logistical pitch now. So if you didn't get a little card on the way in, they are on the table right outside the door. We're trying this as a sign-in method. This is the best way for us to get your contact info, keep you up to date with what's going on. We won't sell your information or anything like that, but it's helpful for us to be able to keep you posted on things. So pick the cards up. If you have them, you have a question.
I'll wait till you're finished. I have something I wanted to say.
Oh, perfect. On the way out, there's going to be a couple of people at the doors with baskets. You can just put them in there. You can also put donation envelopes in there if you want to contribute financially. On the little cards, there's an opportunity to say you want to volunteer. So we appreciate all of that. Do you want to say something before I close?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I just want to thank you all for coming out here. I'm sure you all have met Kathy Ellis before and have helped her with last year's race. And I just want to say, as our former president has stated, yes, we can.
Linda is reminding me that someone left sunglasses out on the table, so if that's you, Linda has them. So the last thing we're going to do this evening, we've got some cookies and water outside. Please help yourself. We're going to take a group photo, if that's okay with everyone. So there's some what we call rally signs, these signs right here out on the table. So if you want to pick them up on your way out, we're going to gather outside in the grass, and our lovely photographer is going to take a group photo for us. And then please come back inside, mingle, eat cookies. There's a little blue screen set up out there for us to take some photos. You can take photos with Kathy, whatever you want to do, we'll take them. So thank you all again, and we'll see you outside.